I will tell you my reaction. The first time my husband wanted to go on a cruise. Our first cruise, I do believe, was Mexico, and I didn't know anything about the heritage, but I remember riding on the bus and they were telling me stories about sacrifices there and everything. And I remember asking the bus driver if those things still go on. And I went back home and I posted information at the Stephen King Simon Schuster publishing site where people would go and talk in one of the chat forums writers called the Green Mile. And they used a lot of my stuff that I had posted there and for ideas for John Saw's book, The Devil's Labyrinth, because I had talked about a painter on MySpace that I had met who painted the Pope's picture. He painted the picture of the Pope in the Vatican Museum, and he'd asked if he could do a painting of me. His name was George. We became really good friends. He was handicapped, so I was trying to make him a painter of the aristocrats here in America. A cross had fallen on him in a cemetery, and he was impoverished, and he was a famous painter. So I started sending him videos and gifts to try to help him keep his spirits up, because his dad was sick. He needed a caretaker. He was paralyzed for life. He was a phenomenal person. Next thing I know, he's put in John Saw's book, The Devil's Labyrinth. And also I talked about going to all the catacombs in France and everything. That was put in his book. And he put a lot of the things I had posted at that Stephen King site in his book, The Devil's Labyrinth. And I said at the same time, if Del Toro, that did Hellboy, comes out with anything remotely similar to John's book, and John Saw sets his next book out of the country, they're working together. So guess what? They did. Not only did that happen, they both put a labyrinth at their page. Facebook page had each one of them with a labyrinth where the children are sacrificed. And it was a different labyrinth, but they both had a labyrinth with a child looking off into the distance, afraid. So they were using things I said and did before he did that book. And I knew something was really major wrong, that there was going to be a conspiracy to try to attack all the churches and to try to even maybe go after the Vatican. I wasn't sure, but in the story, they plot to put a bomb there, and there's a labyrinth. And children are like being sacrificed in the book where the labyrinth is, but yet they made an assassination attempt on the Pope. And then lo and behold, Tom Hanks, who keeps sending me stuff, trying to get me to meet him out of the state, he did Angels and Demons and Da Vinci Code, where it ties him with the Vatican. So my impression the first time I went, and Bob wanted to go on this trip, this was the second temple we see. This is my second trip to Mexico right here. This is after I put on so much weight. First time I went, I was skinny. This was the second time I went. So I went to Tulum and I went to Chichen Itza. But my first experience going to these places that my husband picked that I would have never chosen was a very dark, eerie feeling. And when I was in Tulum, first thing I noticed was the gate. I said, oh my God, this fence is made like a serpent. Do you see this? And then the tour guide said, well, people were doing things in the image of the dragon during this period. And I said, well, thank God we live in a civilized world now. Those people were really stupid. I'm glad their culture's extinct now. And I just couldn't believe people could ever be barbaric. I thought in human times, this would never happen. Surely not. Those people really were backwards, didn't have any sense. Their culture died because they were evil and they were bloodthirsty and they put wealth over human souls. But I did tell my husband, I bet there were a lot of people buried with buried treasures and jewels and things that they were supposed to put with the bodies off the coast. I said, I bet there's so many buried treasures and, depraved, sad, damn souls here, a lot of damn souls. And then I said that when I was very young. I was in my early 20s when we went there. That was my first cruise with him. And then when I ended up going to this place, I remember being on the bus and I just had this eerie feeling that maybe those things still occurred. And I remember posting at the Stephen King site. And that's before they came out with all this new hunt, slay, kill, Mayan crap. They started leaving Mayan necklaces here and my house, breaking in and trying to sacrifice me. Can you imagine? Can you believe it? In a modern world.